اهلا باعزائي المشاهدين مع رحله جديده مع مواقف وطرائف. الحقيقه رحلتنا النهارده حلقه خاصه بنطير فيها صوت وصوره عبر الاقمار الصناعيه في لقاء رتبته لنا نهار رزق عن طريق وكاله الاعلام الامريكيه، وفي حوار مع جورج مايكل اشهر مذيع رياضي في امريكا. جورج مايكل اللي حضراتكم سمعتوه دلوقتي وسمعتوا تعليقاته، هو بيقدم اشهر برنامج في امريكا والبرنامج الوحيد اللي بيتذاع على 50 ولايه في نفس الوقت كل يوم حد. ودلوقتي خلاص الوقت بيبتدي علشان القمر الصناعي، ونبدأ معاه هذا الحوار.
Jlal Alem, host of the popular weekly program Situations and Attitudes in Cairo. Welcome, and go ahead with your first question, please.
Good evening, sir. Do you mind if I call you George?
I appreciate that, Jlal. Please.
I'm a presenter of weekly program called Incidents and Funnies. Sitting with me Nihar Rizk, program producer. First question.
It seems to me that your program is very much related to your attractive personality. Do you think this is a main factor in the success of any program?
Jlal, thank you for the way you stated that question. I like that. I like to play that for my bosses. Last night, I hope it's all right to tell us, and if it's not, I've been in trouble before. Last night, I said that I was asked by one of our employer, the company that employs me, if I would let them take out $1 million life insurance policy on me. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, God forbid something happens to you, the show will die. And I said, well, why is that? And they said, well, because you are the show. I think that's very flattering, but I found it very mercenary that they want to take out $1 million life insurance policy on me. So after I said thank you, I told them no thank you. But I guess that the show that we do is a reflection of me, because I do things that I know other people would never do. I understand that, but I like it that way, and that's what makes it different. So, yes, the show is a reflection of what I like, what I feel, what I think, and what I believe.
You speak too fast in your program and always ready to improvise and make jokes on unexpected situations.
Do you find it easy to react and respond that quickly?
Well, my background originally, you see, I used to be in radio. I have learned through the years, even though many people think I speak too fast now, I have to discipline myself to slow down. I have to remind myself all the time, slow down. But one of the things I do, if I see something, I like to think of it in terms, when possible, of being able to laugh about it. I think that sometimes we take sports much too seriously. I realize that there's always national pride or civic pride or city pride, but I see no offense if I laugh or if I have a good time. So yes, I do try to think very quickly and say, now what can I say about that might be interesting? Yes, and I do also realize, Jlal, I'm sorry, I know I speak fast. I wish I would slow down. I will work on that.
Presenting a very well-known sports program, we would like to know your relationship with the sports in general. Are you a sportsman yourself? If yes, does this help in presenting the program?
Well, I was not a star. For example, I don't know if you've heard of a man named John Madden, who is a major football announcer, but John Madden was a coach for many years, and he was also a player. So he has a certain insight. I, on the other hand, was never a star. I played football and a lot of it. I played basketball, a lot of it. Baseball. And soccer is what I really... Soccer was the only thing that I was really successful at. But I learned a lot from, even though I didn't become a star, and even though most of the time I spent was on the bench, I still learned a lot from sports. And yes, I don't think that you could possibly be able to do a sports program like what I do if you've never played any sports. Like earlier we showed a piece on rodeo. I am a ranchman. I breed and raise horses. I own a couple of bulls. by owning them, by working with them, by knowing them, it makes it a lot easier for me to go do the stories.
George, do you have personal relationships with the superstars, or do you have to pay them every time you interview one of them?
Let me tell you, Claude, we unfortunately have oftentimes been asked for money to interview athletes. So I will tell you that we do not pay athletes for interviews. If an athlete wants money, we don't do the interview. When you see someone on the Sports Machine, know that they were told simply that we will do the story to the best of our ability. It doesn't matter who the athlete is. If you have to start paying them for the story, that's going to be a real problem, and we just don't do it. We might, however, give them a gift, and I don't mean a big gift, but we might give them a shirt or a jacket or something like that that would say Sports Machine just to say thank you for their time. But no, we do not pay them.
George, early days, was it your dream
to become a media personality?
Hello, I don't know what you did when you were a kid, but I used to sit in my bedroom and dream that one day I would do what I'm doing now. That's why I say I feel about as lucky as you can get to be able to make a living at doing something I always dreamed about doing. I used to sit in my bedroom and my sisters would say, oh, he's talking to himself again. But I'd be in there practicing. I would be in there dreaming about doing, well, at that time it was mostly baseball, but I always dreamed of doing this. To me, I couldn't be any luckier. I get paid money for doing something I don't want the boss to hear this, but I would do this for free. Well, okay. Maybe not for free, but you understand what I mean.
Okay. What's the most unusual sports incident you experienced during your history with the program and you never forget?
Well, I mentioned Doug Williams, who was a football player for the Redskins. I think that was one of my most enjoyable. I would say that maybe even this year there was a race car driver named Davey Allison who appeared to have this what they call the World Series of race car driving. He appeared to have the championship won. And then with just 26 laps to go after racing from February all the way to November, all of a sudden, as he's headed to this victory, his car gets smashed up by somebody else, and he loses by a couple of points. Well, now, we had already arranged for the interview. We'd already arranged where we would do the interview. We'd already arranged for the celebration. And what do? We were left with no interview. We killed the story, and we subsequently will air the story in about 3 or 4 months. But I would say that this year, that's the first time where we counted on something happening before it happened. And as a result, we got burned. So we didn't have the story. And that was probably, I will say that's about as memorable as you're going to get, is you remember the things that most went wrong. You just don't forget it. If you've planned on it going a certain way and it goes completely different, you don't forget it.
George, also what's the most funniest incident during the history of your program and you never forget?
Well, it's not funny because it's embarrassing, and that is we have a tape machine. And if you roll a tape and the picture doesn't come up, you're just left there standing there. And this was, I want to say, back around June of 1987. And if you lose one of your pictures on the tape, you're going to lose them all. And I'm standing out there at the start. First of all, the machine didn't roll. Second of all, when it did, everything is wrong. And I'm standing with my script and I'm going, there's nothing working. And you're standing out there in front of that camera broadcasting to millions of people going, and then you're saying, you're not going to get paid for this, George. You're not doing very well. And there's nothing happening. And you don't forget something like that. That only happened once. We now have a backup system. But so that the show, all the tapes that we show, all the highlights are duplicated. So that if the first tape breaks, we're always ready with the second. But I won't forget the first one.
Retirement of Magic Johnson. Do you find it a very dramatic situation for you?
Well, yes, because Interestingly enough, the week before he retired, Magic and I had sat down and we did an interview together. And that was for use on the Sports Machine in 2 weeks. And after we finished the interview, he told me he was not feeling well. And he went back to Los Angeles. And about 5 days later, he retired. Well, now here we are ready with this big story on him. And he retires, and he says it's because of the AIDS virus, that he was HIV positive. I think that his forced retirement has made people more aware of HIV positive and of AIDS virus than we've ever been in this country. Each country has their own degree of epidemic, if you will, about it. Magic leaving and Larry Bird leaving at the same time, that takes 2 great stars out of the game of basketball. Fortunately, we have Michael Jordan, who I consider to be one of the greatest athletes of all time. But Magic leaving means that you have taken what we call a marquee player, or a great star who transcends the sport of basketball, where everybody enjoys seeing and hearing from him. Unfortunately, we lose a great star in the game.
George, I know you are very popular, but tell me how you deal with critics.
I have no problems with critics, except that oftentimes critics don't like certain things I do. The critics, you know, everyone has their own way of how they'd like for you to do something. The only thing I ask is, I just say to the critics, at least try to...